Lytudiep greets dear friends. In this life everyone will have dreams. Too deep is the same. She started to build her own dream. But to do that, beside her there will always be a hero. Jame. So what is their story like? Let's watch today. The soft sunlight of a countryside morning streamed gently through the window, painting the little house where Jame and Diep and Nhi lived with a golden calm. In the kitchen, laughter fluttered like birdsong as Diep tied Nhi's silky hair and helped her eat breakfast. "You look so pretty today," she said tenderly, her hands gentle, her smile bright. Nhi giggled, dipping her bongoon into the sauce, her small voice full of innocence and joy. James watched them quietly, the corners of his lips lifting in a smile that held both love and gratitude. After breakfast, he turned to Diep. "Shall we go look at those places for rent today? Maybe we'll find somewhere to start our business." Diep nodded, her eyes lighting up with excitement. For months they had dreamed of opening a small warehouse, a space where they could collect and sell local produce. It wasn't just a job, it was the beginning of a shared life, built from nothing but hope and determination. They spent the morning walking through dusty paths and old streets, visiting different spots, some large but too expensive, others cheap but inconvenient. Still, James kept his optimism. "Look at this one," he said, stopping before a small warehouse at the junction of 3 roads. "Farmers pass through here all the time. This could be perfect." Diep examined the place, then smiled. "It's small but practical. If we start here, we can grow later. It feels right." After some thought, they decided to rent it for 6 months, long enough to try, short enough to be safe. James called the landlord, his voice calm yet filled with quiet resolve. "We'll take it," he said. "6 months first, then we'll see." Once the papers were done, the two of them rolled up their sleeves and began to clean and repair the space. James struggled with the cement, his movements clumsy, and Diep couldn't help but laugh. No, you have to smooth it like this," she said, taking the trowel from him and pressing gently. "If you don't, the rain will wash it away." James watched, smiling at how confident she looked, her hands steady, her eyes glowing with focus. "I see," he said. "Let me try again." They worked side by side until their hands were dusty and their clothes streaked with gray. But their hearts felt light. Every wall they fixed, every corner they swept clean, carried the quiet pulse of shared effort, the sound of a dream taking shape. Their neighbor, John, wandered over and offered to help. "You two are always working so hard," he said cheerfully. "Let me lend a hand." Together they moved boxes, patched walls, and laughed like old friends. When everything was almost done, John sat with them for tea, his smile warm. "You've brought life back to this place," he said before heading home. As the sun dipped lower, a quiet knock came at the door. When James opened it, he saw an elderly woman, Nhi's grandmother. Her eyes were gentle but serious, her hands holding a small bag. "I know you've been living here," she began softly. "I came today not to take Nhi away, but to talk." James and Diep listened in silence as she continued. "I've been watching. I see how happy Nhi is with you, how she laughs, how she calls you mom and dad without hesitation. I believe you truly love her. So I've decided she should stay here with you." The room fell silent except for the trembling breath that escaped Diep's lips. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached for James's hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Nhi is like our own child. We'll love her and care for her as if she were our daughter." The grandmother smiled, her eyes glistening. "That's all I ever wanted. I may visit sometimes, if that's all right." "Of course," James said softly. "Our door will always be open." That evening, as James went to the market to buy food and Diep stayed to talk with the grandmother, the sound of children laughing echoed from afar. Nhi was coming home from school. The air felt different then, filled with something gentle and complete. The little family they had built from kindness and patience was now whole, under the fading light of day, with a future full of unknowns but hearts full of faith. James and Diep realized they had already found what they had been searching for all along. Not just a place to build their dream, but a home, a family, and a love strong enough to make even the simplest moments shine.